Back in the year 1991, it was difficult to create a sci-fi movie with special effects without the equipment and computer programs we have today. But James Cameron pulled that off. Terminator 2: Judgment Day is considered by many to be one of the most spectacular movies in history. It took 3.5 months to shoot the film together with a crew of several hundred people. But it took a year and a half to create the special effects, to make montage, and to layer the soundtracks. Lucky for us, this tremendous work resulted in arguably the most iconic movie of its time. It all began when the owners of Carol Core Studios, Mario Kassar and Andrew Wine, bought all the rights to Terminator. So on Christmas Eve 1989, Mario Kassar called James Cameron. He told him about the deal and asked if he wanted to create a sequel to Terminator. But there was one problem. Carol Core Studios had already scheduled the premiere for the 3rd of July 1991, which basically meant that Cameron had only 18 months to come up with a story and create the film. In addition, Kassar offered Cameron $6 million, which at the time was an insane fee for any director. "Okay, now I'm interested," Cameron famously replied. And well, I can hardly think of a person who would not have been. So Cameron and the screenwriter William Vischer got down to business. After a couple of months of painstaking brainstorming, the script was finished. On paper, it was almost the same Terminator 2: Judgment Day we got eventually. One key difference between the script and the film was an expanded battle scene in the future. So the only thing left was to find the actors for T-1000 and John Connor. As for the Terminator, Michael Biehn, who played Kyle Reese, was considered. It was initially planned that T-1000 was supposed to copy Reese's look. Quite a bold idea, to swap the hero and the villain of the first film. I don't know about you, but I would love to see that movie. However, later Cameron decided that it would confuse the audience too much. The next candidate was Billy Idol. Cameron did a number of sketches and storyboards of T-1000 with the musician's appearance. But Idol got into a very serious accident and almost lost his leg. So playing the Terminator was out of the question, he had to give up the role. And only after that, Robert Patrick was hired. He had to undergo intensive training under Israeli commando Uzi Gael, who taught the actor how to handle a gun properly. The role of John Connor was offered to 13-year-old Edward Furlong, for whom Judgment Day was his debut in cinema. He was selected from more than 300 applicants. At first, the role was offered to Charlie Cosmo, and even Cameron wasn't against his candidacy. But Charlie refused, because he'd already begun to shoot in the movie What About Bob? The shooting began in October 1990. Later participants said that from the first day they were impressed by the complexity and the scale of the picture. The creators often improvised to make the film even more spectacular. Just to give you one example, in the script, T-800 shot police cars with a Mach-10. But when it came to filming, it became clear that such a giant needed a much bigger gun. So a 6-barrel M134 machine gun was chosen. By the way, it's the same gun that was used in Predator. It was so heavy that none of the crew could lift it. Except for Schwarzenegger, naturally. Yet another instance when his background came in quite handy. When shooting the chase scene in the canal, it turned out that the truck was too tall to pass under the bridge in one piece. But Cameron used it to cut the roof of the truck, and thus make the scene even more intense. One of the most important scenes of the film was the one where Sarah Connor removes the control chip from the head of the T-800. It would seem to be quite an unremarkable scene concerning special effects. However, the way it was actually filmed goes to show just how much the budgets of that time were different from those of today. The viewer is shown the scene from two angles at the same time: the backs of the characters and their reflections in the mirror. However, there was no mirror. The double is sitting with his back to us. To his right is a real Sarah Connor. And opposite them in the mirror reflection is a real Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton's twin sister. In this scene, 4 people were working in sync. In addition to Leslie and Linda Hamilton, there was another couple of twins in the movie. Surely you do remember the mental hospital and one of the security guards, the chubby man who drinks coffee. Weird as it may seem, T-1000 who took his form is not the product of special effects. It is once again the actor's own brother. Now many people think that Terminator 2 caused a revolution in computer special effects. After the film's release, everybody in Hollywood wanted SFX just like these, but better. The entire film contains only about 5 minutes of computer graphics, but its creation took 10 months of work and $10 million. George Lucas's special effects studio Industrial Light and Magic was in charge of the graphics. They did a stellar job. And yet most of the effects in Terminator 2 were practical. These included highly detailed miniatures and magnificent animatronic figures made by Stan Winston. The crew put a lot of effort into every one of them. And that's why Terminator 2 still looks better than many modern movies. Speaking of puppets, in the episode in the same mental hospital, Arnie shoots the T-1000 in the head. It immediately splits and moves around. It looks like CGI, but actually it is a silicone mannequin with servos. Similar puppets were used in the creation of the T-1000 with a shot face, and at the very end, when T-800 uses a grenade launcher to make a roaring mess out of it, just before it falls into the red-hot metal. A puppet version of the cyborg can also be seen in the liquid nitrogen scene. The bluish figure with the expression of surprise on its face was made of fragile material, breaking very spectacularly into small shards. Schwarzenegger was also lucky to have artificial doubles. The puppet appears when the police burst into the building to restore order and to fill the room with gas. T-800 rushes forward, while the police shoot him with lead. Pieces of the robot are torn off, everything's in smoke, and the right side of his face is gleaming with metal. In this scene as well, we see a masterful use of alternating shooting a real actor and a full-size mannequin, which was controlled by two people. One led him on the set, while the other moved his head. Even for Sarah Connor they had to make mannequins, and she got the most disgusting ones. All of them were burnt in the episode where John Connor's mother sees a nuclear explosion in her sleep. To shoot the famous scene with T-1000 getting out of the burning car, Robert Patrick had to run kilometers naked in front of the cameras, capturing all his movements through a special grid placed on his body. When there was enough material, the CGI specialists spent weeks superimposing metal textures on the resulting virtual model. As for the wounds from the bullets on Robert's body, they were made without a computer. The actor wore a special vest with spring-loaded rosettes of foam rubber. As soon as the bullet hit the T-1000, the assistant remotely activated the spring. The hole from the shot opened out. But all the wounds had to be healed using computer animation. There was no practical way to shoot that. The episode with the Terminator walking through the bars in the corridor of the mental hospital was also shot using CGI. The room was filmed both with and without the bars. A computer-generated three-dimensional model of the cyborg was superimposed on Robert Patrick's image and then leaked through the metal bars. The effect holds up wonderfully to this very day. Perhaps the easiest part of working on T-1000 was recreating its fluidity when it thaws. The crew simply used blow dryers to dump a few mercury drops into a puddle. However, the soulful final scene, where the T-800 heroically sacrificed itself for the sake of the future of all mankind, was shot in one take. Of course, there was no red-hot metal there. In this magnificent scene, Schwarzenegger was simply dipped into sweet syrup. The effect of glowing steel was given by the lighting. Now try not to think about it when rewatching the film. Arnold also had doubles. We mostly see the most similar one, Peter Kent. He has the same build as the actor, and he became his main double, replacing him in 14 films. In Terminator 2, Kent, among other things, starred in the scene with jumping on a motorcycle from a high wall. A truly iconic stunt. Cameron's perfectionism did its job. Terminator 2 Judgment Day not only achieved tremendous commercial success, grossing $500 million, but also has forever become a part of the treasury of world cinema, as one of the most spectacular and inspired sci-fi action movies in history. That is all for today. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your attention.